Tom Brady on that show. He was interested. He was throwing out feelers all over Football America for his next home. He was leaving Foxborough. He wanted to land in just the right spot. And there were several finalists. And apparently, at the tail end of the process, not the Sixers one, the team told him that they were going to stick with their existing QB. And he said, you're going to stick with that MFer? Who was he talking about?
The same MFer that beat him twice in the regular season, Drew Brees.
Ooh, now that's an interesting one that I hadn't considered. But isn't he pally with Drew Brees? And would Tom Brady really say that?
They're pals enough, right? They're pals enough, but I tell you this, you think Tom Brady's throwing balls to Drew Brees' daughters and sons running across the end zone line if they don't win in that playoff game? If he doesn't, if Drew Brees is the one advancing, you think Tom Brady's still out there shaking hands? Not the Tom Brady that I know and have watched way too much of his career, especially in the last 4.5 years. There's only a certain amount of calls that you're going to say, hey, Tom, we're going to stick with our guy. And that's like a real conversation, right? Because if you're actually on the phone. So that's why I feel like it had to be somebody on the way out. The division was prime with the NFC South was already there. I, like everyone else, was locked in the house for most of last year when The Last Dance came out. But one thing that I knew to be true about Michael Jordan, which was confirmed in that long, very long documentary, he's an every time they had, Gary Payton or somebody else or one of his players talk about him, you could tell there was a different level of laugh. He said, Gary Payton had nothing for me, as he looks down at the iPad, right? It's a level of respect because he knew that Gary Payton could play, but he also knew that Gary Payton had nothing for him. If it was just a lesser guy, he would have never watched the video. That's why Tom Brady is MFing Drew Brees and not the likes of Sam Darnold, because he knows that Drew Brees is first ballot Hall of Famer. He just also knows I wiped the floor with him.